Jim,
I'm here.
we're so glad to see you. Adam and I were just chatting it up, and
Oh, okay.
not really. I'm just trying to make you feel like you were really late.
We've been on for 10 minutes already.
Gosh, not.
It's not true. It's not true.
Sorry we're late, Adam.
We're all good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Adam, for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely.
We don't
It's
know
good
how
to
to
be
say your
on.
last name. How do you say it?
Mihelbergel.
Bergel.
Yep.
Bergel.
Nice.
You got to get the German and the French in there.
Okay.
The German front end, the French ending.
I think I have to do more traveling first. Justification for another trip to both places.
Right. Once we all get out of our homes, we can start traveling.
Very good.
Exactly.
Well, tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm the principal and director of student services in Brannockburn School District 106, which is about 30 miles north of the city of Chicago on Chicago's North Shore. We're a one-building district that serves several different communities, including an international university. And prior to that, I spent the majority of my career in special education, in pretty much every role you could imagine within special education. Classroom teacher, both from the instructional standpoint and resource co-taught classes. I worked as a teacher and an administrator in a therapeutic program. So a lot of my focus throughout the majority of my teaching career was around students with emotional disabilities.
Very nice. So you've written an article about calm and thoughtful leadership.
Yeah.
Through ASCD and leadership that is full child-centered, especially at this time. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, how have you responded? How have you seen others respond? What's needed?
Sure. Yeah. No, I think I'll start with the coolest part of what's going on right now is watching everybody in our world come together. In a space that can oftentimes be, not as open to communication as we'd like. It seems like districts, townships are working together. A number of technology companies have been working to support districts as we kind of roll all of this out. Food service providers, everyone's just kind of coming together. And so that's a great piece. And that kind of leads into, kind of the philosophy around whole child, that buzzword that gets thrown around a lot, right? But the reality is, in the simplest form, it's about more than just academic achievement. It's not just about, we spent this huge chunk of time in education defining kids by reading and math scores, right? Like we did that for over a decade. And it was, if you're good at reading and math, you're a good student. And if you're not, you're not. And we're starting to come out of that space into what does a child need? What does a kid need? And focusing more on the asset piece. Again, kind of back to the reading and math, we spent so long focusing on deficit areas, right? And we're the only business that does that. In every other business, you focus on what people are good at instead of what they're not good at. So I think really the whole child piece comes back to, it's not just about academic achievement. It's about what do kids need and asking lots of questions, the whys. The example I give a lot is like, instead of that kid is always late, how about why are they always late? Or that kid never does their homework. Let's start with why don't they do their homework? And so if we can look at it more through that empathetic lens, we can start to reach more kids. We've alienated so many kids from school for so long because they didn't fit into what we wanted them to fit into. It's got to be more of a collective. We're looking at what are you good at and how can we help you?
And how are you finding your community supporting kids during this time when we're spending time at home and trying to do that learning through the screen we got in front of us right now?
We have been incredibly lucky. We have an incredible community. We really do. The community of Brannockburn School District is absolutely phenomenal. Our parents have been incredibly receptive to what we've rolled out for the e-learning, remote learning platform. It's a challenge for parents. So I'm a parent of twin 6-year-olds, right? And so trying to be a parent and a teacher or a school administrator, it's a very challenging time. So from our perspective, what our parents have reached out, the majority of our parents have reached out either one of two things: to thank us for the work we're doing, or just to ask us, how do you manage all this? How do we do this? How are we working parents? And I'm a great person to ask because I was a middle and high school teacher, and now I'm a principal and a kindergarten teacher, right? And so I'm learning on the fly here too. And so I'm the right guy to ask. And the feedback we always give our parents, and it's the same feedback we give our teachers. There's no wrong way of doing this right now.
Yeah.
Nobody knows how to do this. This is brand new. So take a step back, take a deep breath. We're all doing the best we can. And so I think parents need to hear that a lot, as do teachers. But just to know that we all put so much pressure on ourselves all the time about everything. And this is a time where we have to just take a step back and go, we're all in it together. We're doing the best job we can. So our community has been absolutely phenomenal. Our township, there are 3 other school districts within our township. All of us are supporting one another. It's been an incredibly cohesive experience after about a month.
Nice. Tell me about your teachers and what feedback you're getting from them about what challenges they have, and even just that emotional impact of being separated, from their kids. It's hard.
Yeah, that's a great point. And what we keep saying over and over again to our staff is, there's no wrong way of doing this. You're doing a great job. If there's a problem, send it our way. Because this is a massive undertaking for teachers. I don't think people quite comprehend the level of what's going on right now. They're doing their absolute best to deliver quality instruction when the kids aren't around, right? Yeah. And our teachers and teachers in general are amazing about connecting to kids. That's what we do, right? If you're in the K-12 space, you're in the kid business. And our job is to connect to kids. And it's extremely challenging right now, after 2/3 of a school year, building a classroom community and a school community, to be separated. And we see it as a staff too. We've been doing a daily staff meeting, 12:30 every day, just so we can see each other's faces. We need that connection to each other. And so the biggest piece right now to supporting teachers is letting them know that there isn't a wrong way. And that whatever we can do to help, we'll do. Because I think they're feeling tremendous pressure. And teachers, all of us as teachers, what we're all trying to do right now is recreate school from home. And that's not realistic, but we're going to keep trying, because that's what teachers do, right? And so trying to bring that understanding that we're going to work through this. We're going to figure this out. We're going to figure out the best way to do this. And to not be so hard on yourself. If you don't get to every single thing you want to get to throughout the day, that's going to happen. You've got your own kids. You're doing your own remote learning at home. It's just got to be, we should be supporting our teachers always, but even more so now. They have to feel that they can make that phone call, send that text message or email, and you're going to be all over it.
Yeah.
That's
good point.
That's really
when you're thinking about resources that communities need as they kind of walk through this journey right now, what do you see that what about resources for teachers, but also like your own experience? You're a kindergarten teacher, and maybe even those who don't have kids at home right now. What's happening right now is having an impact across our society, right? And your twins will be taking care of me maybe when I'm in the nursing home and I need some help and can't get out of my bed, right? So we see that there's this block of time where it's not necessarily a gap, because learning is never ending, right?
Right.
But I'm thinking about, what are the resources, and what kind of support or what kind of challenges are we as a whole community, experiencing and seeing, and what are your thoughts on that as far as like helping helping us all be calm and thoughtful during this time?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think, one of the keys, I think that this is a good question to come full circle back to the whole child piece, right? So I think one of the things we talk about a lot as a staff is like, let's not look at this as a gap of time where we're not learning. Let's look at this as a gap of time where we're reframing how we learn and what we learn, right? And so I think, in terms of resources, I think the number one resource, and this is probably not the typical answer, but the number one resource we can give to teachers right now is flexibility. Flexibility in how they're providing instruction and the flexibility in what they're providing. I mean, we spent a lot of time this week with our instructional coaches looking at the incredible number of unique projects you could do from your home that fit into 1,000,001 standards, right? And so we've taken such a narrow view of instruction for so long because of what we talked about earlier, the pressure for academic achievement, reading and math test scores. This is a good opportunity for us to look at how do we want to do this moving forward, right? Because when this does all end, we will all be equipped with a whole new set of tools that we did not have, right, when it all started. And so I think really, from the material resources point, we've really focused on, and as a township, we focused on number one priority are all of our kids getting lunch that need lunch, or all of our kids getting the tools that they need to learn at home. That's kind of the big one. To make sure it comes back to, are we all taken care of? This is a time to take care of each other. From the remote learning platform, we're kind of learning every day what we need. And the feedback from our teachers is really cool at those daily meetings. People just kind of throw out like, what would be really cool? Or do you know what I tried at home? And if I had this, it would work even better. And so this is an opportunity for us to really look at the way we do business and how it's going to change the way we do business going forward. We can't have an extended period of time like this where we're altering the way we provide instruction and the way we connect to kids, and then assume that we're going to walk back into school buildings and everything's going to go right back to the way it was.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think this is such an amazing time for teachers to have flexibility in how they think, how they provide instruction, and to give feedback to administrators on what do we want this to look like going forward.
That's so interesting. So what will you do? Well, first of all, I need to back up because I feel like I missed something. Like maybe you guys had a separate conversation before I got in. Why are you teaching kindergarten?
Oh, so I have twin 6-year-olds.
Oh, okay.
Right? And it's kind of funny too, because first of all, it's a whole different world. Second of all, I forget, I've always worked with kids who are old enough to be able to access on their own, right? They can get on the computer, they can navigate to Google Docs. And I'm like, okay, guys, hop on your iPad and go to Google Docs. And the blank stares come. They're like, what, Dad? So I forget that it's every step of the way, has to be walked through. And then it's I'm on a conference call and it's Dad, right? So it's this whole new world. So that's where the kindergarten piece came in.
I thought this was some new model of leadership where you're
I took over the kindergarten class while we're
it kind of is. But just a little diversion here. If you can be a good kindergarten teacher, you can teach anything. That is my belief.
Literally.
Because you have to have such a what is the word? Not sparse, I guess would be the word, language. You cannot put in anything else in what you're telling them than only what they need. So that simplistic, focused work you're doing right now, it is making you an excellent administrator and teacher, by the way.
No question. The focus and the clarity.
Kindergarten teachers are amazing.
Yeah.
So how should leaders, what are you thinking about in anticipation of moving back into a normal school schedule? You said that we can't go back to just doing things as normal, and I agree with that. There's going to have to be some adjustments made, hopefully for the better. What are you going to do as a principal?
I think what we spend a lot of time talking about as a leadership team is kind of to your question is what is normal when we get back, right? What is that? And so I think we as administrators, no different than teachers and students, don't really know what to anticipate at this time. So I think for us, the focus we want to have, and the focus as a district for us is always community and connection, right? And we have to understand moving back into the school building, whenever and whatever that might look like, right? We really have to take a step back and focus on every kid, every adult has had a different experience through this. And it's really got to be approached through the empathetic lens. You have to understand that everybody has had a unique experience, and as strong as our community was, it's going to involve some rebuilding because it's been so long since we've all really been together physically. Thinking about my own kids and thinking about our primary grade kids, a lot of them are just learning how to do school. Yeah. And now we've taken them out of school, right? Yeah. So there's a whole bunch of kind of social emotional pieces for both students and adults, as well as logistical pieces that we're going to have to, as a collective, we're going to have to be in it together, just like we are now. And we're going to have to map out what that normal looks like to us. But I do think it's got to be a focus on kids and teachers and our families as well, with the understanding that every single person comes out of this with a unique experience.
Nice.
How do you see that when, let's just pretend that we're not all working from home for 6, 8, 12 weeks, okay? And I'm just thinking about the little things in general across the school and how it has evolved back from where we even were in like the 40s and 50s, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm curious what your thoughts are about, no matter where you are or what environment, but I'm thinking more in the traditional school setting. What are the little mm-hmm. things that you believe have helped schools in your area become great?
I think it's a really good question. I think if we look at all of this, whether we're in the school building or we're at home, I think the big pieces that have made us so successful, the big one is communication, the transparency of communication to both our community members, our teachers, and our students, right? We have to be transparent in what our goals and objectives are. And we have to be willing to stand behind why we feel that those are best for our students and our school community. And our families have been incredibly receptive to that. I mean, as you know, like not every parent is going to be happy with every decision that's made in school districts. But if you're clear in your communication and you're transparent in that communication, people are much more open to having the dialogue around it. I think the second piece is, for us as a district, we've really taken that the true whole child approach. And I think that we've seen, certainly over the last couple years, we've seen that has brought more kids into that school success bubble, right? Because kids who have historically kind of been on the outside because they weren't good at what we told them they had to be good at, are starting to come through in a variety of different ways. An example that I have is we have a mindfulness space in our building, and we do a mindful minute to start every school day. We have a middle school team that's called the Middle School Mindful Leadership Team. And they're actually responsible for the mindful minute every morning. They also break out and do mindfulness lessons in our primary grade classrooms. And these are the little pieces that give kids, for example, in this particular example, give middle school kid leadership opportunities that they might not have historically had. And so we really do. I mean, I truly believe that we have an asset-based community. We do truly focus on what all kids are good at. And of course, we'll always support in areas where you need additional support, but that's not the primary focus. The primary focus is, what are you good at? And how do you better our community? Every single kid in every single school district brings something that makes their community better. Our job as adults is to figure out what it is. It's not their job as kids to tell us what it is.
Nice.
When you're thinking about the communication piece,
yeah,
I'm curious, again, I'm looking for sort of these these things that I could come and share with like my peers as educational leaders. We know that in some of the feedback that we've been getting from our community, stop stop calling, stop texting, stop emailing, stop, right? They're just like, phew, they're
Yep.
being just overwhelmed with communication. So we've tried to streamline a little bit. I'm curious about your efforts in that direction, because you're right. You have to be able to share. There's a just right balance of sharing
Yeah.
what's important and what the why is and what the next steps are going to be, but also trying to find those ways that you can get the message to people. I have 30-ish% of our community that don't have internet access. I think they have it on their phone.
Mhm.
We maybe don't always have all the ways that we want to get connected with them. Tell me how you've worked through some of that communication without being kind of a deluge, but also
Yeah.
making sure you're connecting.
That's a really great point about in the early going of all this. It was, I know there's the philosophy on the, well, over communicate, right? But so I have an amazing superintendent, and his philosophy has always been, I've known him for years. His philosophy has always been, when we have new information, let's ensure that that information is clear and accurate before we put it out to our community, right? And so I feel like a lot of what we've seen in this deluge of communication, on the front end of all of this, a lot of what I saw was something would come from the state, and before the state had even finished their thought, communication was going out from districts to parents, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we've really taken the approach of, let's sit back, get all of the information. I'd rather wait 24 hours and give crystal clear communication to our families that only has to go out one time, than send something out and go, ooh, it sounds like we didn't say it all, or we said too much, and then you have to re-communicate. And I think that's where a lot of that abundance of communication came from, was that people were jumping too quickly to communicate and not taking enough time to really sift through what they wanted to communicate. So the success we found is, we take the information that we have, we ensure that it's accurate, and we also make sure that we trim it down and make it as clear as possible. Because, to your earlier point, it's like, if you've got 19 things going on in your house, you don't have time to read 7 emails that come from school between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. Right? And so we really try to make it a crystal clear communication. And then at the end of every one of our communications is always, if there's something that's unclear, call me. Always. And we do get a handful of phone calls that are like, hey, I didn't quite understand this. Great, we'll explain it to you. Because I think where we ran into some issues in the early going, we fortunately, I felt, handled it really well. But I think sometimes in an effort to communicate as quickly as possible, it led to the need for more communication. So I think kind of a streamlined answer to your question is, sit on the information until you're 100% clear that it's accurate, and then create a communication that's very explicit on exactly what you want your community to know. And that's been the feedback from our community, is it's crystal clear, and it's not an overabundance of communication.
And to follow up with that, then tell me more. I know in my building and in our community, most of the communication that's going back and forth is between the teacher and the parents, right? And I've tried to stay out of it as much as possible, because I do think I sometimes just sort of muddy the waters and don't intend to, but just don't need to get in the way. But there's a tiny bit of me that's worried about, am I hearing from families that maybe need support? So I actually set aside somebody to call every family group. So sometimes there's 3, 4, 5 kids right in a family, but just to ask some questions like, how's it going? What do you need? What kind of support can we give you? Anything else you think we should know? Kind of on a one-on-one phone call. I'm curious how you've maybe tried to address that, just so that you in that leadership role can hear or get a pulse, if you will. Because I think my teachers are all doing pretty well. I'm trying to get in and, participate a little bit, but there could be some gaps, and I'm not sure if I know about it.
Right. No, first of all, I love the idea that you're doing that you've got kind of a point person that's getting out to each family. we're a smaller school district, and we also have a very tight-knit community around the school. So for me, what's nice is there's no hesitation to call or email me directly at any time. So
Nice.
we're fortunate in that sense. A couple of our neighbors right next door to us that are part of our township, they're massive. And so that's a whole other ballgame, right?
Yeah.
So the way I've been handling it is very similar to the way that you have, in the sense that the vast majority of the communication is going out through my teachers, right?
Uh-huh.
But the one protocol we do have set up that's been helpful for our teachers, because A, it's one less thing for them to do, and B, it's one more way for me to stay connected, is we've been, if you haven't heard from a student in a day from remote learning, if you're not getting anything, if they've checked in on attendance and we're not getting anything, send me those kids and I'll reach out to the parents to figure out what's going on. This kind of comes back to our earlier conversation about let's ask why more, right?
Yeah.
We don't know what's going on in every household right now. We don't know if people are sick. Some parents could be essential workers that are out of the house most of the day. There's a variety of different factors that are playing into everybody's life right now. And so it's more of just, we're reaching out more of just the, hey, notice that you haven't checked in with us. Is there something we can do? Is there something we can do to help you? Every now and again you get something like one parent was like, I'm so glad you called. We've been stuck in Florida. Like we went down to Florida and then we're stuck here. So we hope to be back soon, but this is where we are now. And so, and kids moving around, maybe they're spending some time, maybe they have parents that live in different states and now they're with a parent that lives in another state for, a certain period of time. And so there's a variety of factors. So we've really been using that as if we're not getting what we would consider a pretty regular check-in from our kids, then those names come to me and I reach out to the families directly just to stay connected and figure out what do people need.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
What are you working on next? Are you writing any more articles, leadership articles, or?
Well, right now, we'll see where that goes. I'm doing a little bit of writing right now. It was great to do the interview with ASCD. I'm working on my doctorate right now at the University of Illinois, so that takes up plenty of time. So I am doing some additional article writing, and have looked at the possibility of perhaps writing a book when the dust settles. We'll see. But right now, in terms from the personal standpoint, with becoming a newly minted kindergarten teacher and school administrator, combined with the doctorate, that takes up the majority of my time. But obviously, anytime ASCD reaches out and asks, I'm always on board.
Nice.
That's great.
Nice.
If you could go back in a time machine and talk to your younger self, what advice would you give to your younger self?
I was thinking about this one, and I realized it's a piece of advice that I've often given to students, especially my older students when I was in the high school, and I think about it a lot. When you see red flags, there's usually a reason. Go with your gut, right? And so if something doesn't sound right, it's probably not right. And so I feel like I've said that to a million students over the years. I'm not sure I've always heeded my own advice. Oftentimes, you try to power through the red flags, but just trying to help kids understand that your intuition is very real. And if it doesn't seem right, start asking a whole bunch of questions.
Love that. And I think that's true for teachers as well, right?
Absolutely.
Just listen to that little voice, and it's giving you some direction on how best to support yourself and your students.
Absolutely. And right now, to that exact point, right now, teachers need to do that, right? Like that you need to, everybody's got to stay healthy right now.
Right.
And teachers are working every day still. They're in front of kids every day and they're lesson planning, giving instruction and assessing, and this is an extremely challenging time for them. So teachers have to understand that it's okay to take a step back, take a deep breath and go, we'll get through this, and pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah, fantastic. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for taking time to talk to us and give us some of your insights and help us really understand more about what you and your community are doing. Love the concepts about that mindfulness. I think that it's just an important element that we talk about, but sometimes we struggle with really being able to implement and to do it well, especially when, you know, our community has adjusted to different environments right now, right? We're still a community,
Absolutely.
but we are definitely having to kind of connect in different ways. So thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it.
Good luck with
Very
everything.
good.
Thank you so much. Good chatting
Okay.
with you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.